It was late evening in a small-town diner, and most customers had already left. Daniel, dressed in plain jeans and a worn-out jacket, sat quietly in the corner booth. To everyone, he looked like another tired traveler, but in truth, Daniel was the CEO of a major food company, working undercover to see how real people lived and struggled. That's when he noticed her, Emily, the young waitress with tired eyes but a gentle smile for every customer. She moved quickly between tables, but Daniel's sharp eyes caught something unusual. As the shift ended, Emily slipped into the kitchen, carefully wrapped leftover bread rolls and napkins, and tucked them into her bag. Curiosity piqued, Daniel followed discreetly. Instead of going home, Emily walked a few blocks down to an alley where two small children were waiting. Their faces lit up when she handed them the bread. "Eat slowly," she whispered, her voice breaking with both love and exhaustion. Daniel froze. He had thought she was stealing out of greed. Instead, she was feeding hungry mouths, children who weren't even hers. Something stirred deep inside him. This wasn't theft. This was survival wrapped in compassion. For the first time in years, Daniel felt his heart ache. The empire he built was about food, yet here were children depending on scraps. And the woman who kept them alive was working in his company's smallest diner. What he discovered that night would change everything: his business, his heart, and his destiny. Daniel sat in his car long after Emily disappeared into the night with the children. His mind replayed the scene, the way she smiled at the kids despite her own exhaustion, the way she split the bread evenly, making sure they each had a fair share. He had built a billion-dollar food empire, yet he had never seen hunger so close, nor kindness so pure. The next evening, he returned to the diner. Emily was there again, working tirelessly, smiling politely at grumpy customers, and apologizing even when it wasn't her fault. She never complained. But Daniel's eyes were fixed on her worn-out shoes, her tired hands, and the shadows under her eyes. When the shift ended, Daniel approached her. "Tough day?" he asked casually. Emily gave him a quick, embarrassed smile. "Just another day," she said softly. But her eyes betrayed her, eyes that carried burdens heavier than her words admitted. Later, Daniel followed her once more. Instead of heading home, Emily stopped by a shabby apartment building. He waited from a distance, watching as she carried groceries, paid for with coins she had carefully counted, to a door where the same two children rushed out to greet her. Their hug was fierce, desperate. Inside, Daniel could faintly hear laughter. Laughter in a place that had almost nothing. And in that moment, he realized, Emily wasn't their mother. She was their neighbor, barely surviving herself, yet feeding and caring for children abandoned by the world. Daniel leaned back against his car, overwhelmed. He came undercover to learn about his company's service. Instead, he had uncovered a woman whose heart shone brighter than wealth itself. And without knowing it, Emily had already touched something he thought he'd lost forever: his capacity to feel. The following night, Daniel returned to the diner, but this time with a different purpose. He wasn't just an undercover CEO anymore. He was a man curious, almost drawn, to the quiet strength of a woman who gave so much while having so little. Emily noticed him immediately. "You've been here 3 nights in a row," she teased gently, setting down a steaming cup of coffee in front of him. Daniel chuckled. "Maybe I like the coffee." She raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. "It's instant coffee. Nobody likes it that much." Her honesty made him laugh out loud, and for the first time in years, Daniel felt like he wasn't being treated as the CEO, but just a man. Over the next hour, he watched her work, slipping small kindnesses into every moment. She refilled an old man's cup without charging him. She gave a lonely truck driver an extra slice of pie. Every act was quiet, unnoticed by others, but Daniel saw it all. When her shift ended, Emily tied her thin coat around herself and prepared to leave. This time, Daniel walked beside her. "You take care of those kids every night," he said carefully, testing her reaction. She froze, eyes wide. "You followed me?" Her voice wasn't angry, just guarded. "I saw what you did. You feed them." You care for them. Her shoulders slumped. They're not mine. Their mother left. Their father drinks. Someone has to look after them. Her words struck Daniel like lightning. She wasn't just surviving, she was sacrificing her own comfort for children who weren't even her responsibility. And at that moment, Daniel realized, this woman had more courage than anyone he had ever met in his boardrooms. He also realized something else. He wasn't here to observe anymore. He was here because he couldn't walk away. The next evening, Daniel didn't just sit quietly in the diner, he offered to help. When the rush hit, he picked up trays, refilled glasses, and cleared tables alongside Emily. She gave him a puzzled look but didn't push him away. You don't have to do this, she said as they stood by the sink, washing dishes together. Maybe I want to, Daniel replied. Besides, you look like you could use a hand. For the first time, he saw her laugh, a soft, weary laugh that lit her tired face. You're strange, she said, shaking her head. After work, Daniel walked with her again. When they reached the children's apartment, Emily hesitated. You shouldn't come inside, she whispered. But the children had already spotted him. Who's that? One of them asked, eyes curious. Emily stammered, but Daniel knelt down and smiled. Just a friend. The kids tugged him inside, and before long, Daniel found himself sitting at a rickety table while Emily prepared a simple meal, half a loaf of bread, a bit of soup stretched thin. He noticed how she gave the children more than herself, pretending she wasn't hungry. Later, as the kids drifted to sleep, Emily quietly admitted, I don't know how long I can keep this up. Sometimes, I think about giving up. Her voice broke, but she quickly wiped her tears, ashamed of her weakness. Daniel's chest tightened. Here was a woman carrying the weight of a world that wasn't hers, yet still holding it together with grace. And without thinking, he said softly, You don't have to do it alone anymore. Emily looked at him, startled, as if unsure whether to trust his words. But in Daniel's eyes she saw no pity, only sincerity. Days turned into a quiet routine. Daniel kept showing up, sometimes at the diner, sometimes at the shabby apartment. He fixed a broken chair for the children, brought extra groceries. By accident. And once even taught the boy how to tie his shoelaces properly. Emily grew wary. You're kind, Daniel, she said one evening after walking him out. But I can't understand why. People don't just help for no reason. He hesitated. How could he tell her the truth? That he was not some drifter with spare change, but the man who owned the very company she worked for. He feared the walls she might build if she knew. So instead, he said quietly, Maybe because I know what it's like to need help and not get it. It wasn't a lie. His own childhood had been marked by nights of hunger before fortune changed his path. Emily softened. For the first time, she let him see her pain. I had dreams, you know. I wanted to study, to travel, but life had other plans. Now my dreams are just making sure those kids don't go to bed hungry. Her honesty struck deep. Daniel had built skyscrapers, signed billion-dollar deals, and yet, sitting on that cracked sidewalk beside her, he felt more human than he had in years. He looked at Emily, her tired face glowing in the faint streetlight, and a dangerous truth settled in his heart. He wasn't just admiring her kindness anymore. He was falling for her. And with that realization came fear. Because soon, his disguise would crumble. And when she learned who he really was, would she still look at him the same way? The night of the reveal came unexpectedly. The diner was buzzing with unusual energy. Regional managers, executives, and photographers gathered for a surprise inspection. Emily, overwhelmed, whispered nervously to Daniel, What's going on? Before he could answer, the room fell silent. A senior manager announced, Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Daniel Hartley, CEO of Hartley Foods. Emily's tray nearly slipped from her hands. She turned slowly, disbelief flooding her face, as Daniel, no longer in his worn jacket but in a tailored suit, stood before her. Her voice trembled. You're the CEO? Daniel's eyes searched hers, full of regret and hope. I never meant to deceive you. I came undercover to learn about my diners. But what I found was you, your kindness, your sacrifice, your strength. You opened my eyes, Emily." Tears welled in her eyes. "All this time, you watched me struggle. Why didn't you say anything?" He stepped closer, gently taking her hand. "Because I wanted to see the real you before I offered help. And Emily, you are more real, more extraordinary, than anyone I've ever met." Around them, the staff whispered, but Daniel only saw her. "From today, those children will never go hungry again. I'll make sure of it. And if you'll let me, I don't want to just change their lives. I want to be part of yours." Emily's lips parted, her defenses crumbling. For once, she allowed herself to dream beyond survival. And in that small-town diner, with leftover bread and weary hearts turned into something new, Emily realized she hadn't just met a stranger, she had found a partner, a protector, and perhaps, the love she never dared to hope for.